We're going to do a little fun segment here where we take two players and we say, who would you rather have? We're going to kind of compare players. We're looking at flockfantasy.com and we're looking at the rankings here. And we're just going to say, who would you rather have, this player or that player? Who would you rather have, Stephon Diggs or Zay Flowers for your fantasy team?
That's a really close question. Stephon Diggs, the wide receivers on the Texans all kind of have similar amount of targets, but Nico seems to have that lead. Meanwhile, Zay is the clear-cut one, and their tight ends are kind of struggling at this point. CJ's a better thrower than Lamar is, but Lamar's got the MVPs, obviously. It's a good question, Mark. I'm gonna go with Zay Flowers. I think he'll be a bit more consistent considering he's the main guy there. Diggs, I could definitely see having more like chunks of like 20-point games or so, but I think Zay will consistently be like 15 or so.
Yeah, I'm picking Zay Flowers for the same reason. Hunter just said it right there. Stephon Diggs, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have him. I do have Zay Flowers on my fantasy team, so who would I rather have? Probably the guy I have right now. But I agree. He's the most consistent player. I have him at flex every week. He's getting me anywhere from like 11 to 15 points a week, maybe a touchdown every now and then. I know Lamar isn't as good as a thrower or passer as CJ Stroud, but when you're competing with guys like Nico Collins and Tank Dell, it's gonna be really hard to get as many targets as you were getting on the Bills. No, don't get me wrong, he's going to be great. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns in week 1, and he was really good this past week, but I do slightly favor Nico Collins, so I'm going to go Zay, but it's very close.
All right, let's up the ante a little bit. We're going to stick with Zay Flowers here because I think he's kind of underrated.
I agree.
Who would you rather have, Zay Flowers or Chris Olave?
Oh, Zay Flowers, hands down. Yeah,
Zay Flowers, hands down. Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not a Chris
I
Olave.
agree. I agree.
Yeah, I like Chris Olave is so overrated. Like I have no issue with him as a person or anything or his football abilities, but like I the NFL sites, fantasy football sites love him for some reason, and he's not even like the best receiver on his team right now, which is crazy. It's probably like Shaheed or someone like that. Like
Yeah.
it's without question. I'm gonna go with Zay Flowers here.
Yeah, I'm in agreement again here. Zay Flowers, again, number 1 target on his team. It's just, how do you not pick him, right? Olave, I know he's
Yeah.
higher up on the rankings. ESPN loves him. All the other rankings love him. But I mean, let's look at the last 2 weeks, for instance. The Saints seem to be fine without him. Now, again, he's been healthy, but he hasn't really impacted the game. He's had, what, 5 receptions in 2 games? And he's had maybe
Yeah.
less than 50 yards, I think, like on the year, and I know Derek Carr's on this Linsanity run right now, whatever you want to call it, but they seem to be okay just throwing to Shaheed and using their other options or running it with Kamara. And remember, he can catch as well, too. He had a touchdown as well. He had 4 touchdowns. One of them was receiving touchdown. If you want a more consistent receiver, Zay Flowers is definitely who you're going with here. And I think that one's a no-brainer. So,
All right. Let's up the ante a little bit more. We're going to stick with Zay Flowers. Who would you rather have, Zay Flowers or Malik Neighbors?
That's
I
a
mean, I
good
can
one.
start with this one. For this year, give me Zay Flowers. For the
Okay.
future, I think I might want Malik Neighbors.
Totally agree. Yep.
Thank you. Zay
Okay.
Flowers this year has a way better quarterback. Their schedule is easier for the team that they have around him. Again, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. He's the most consistent receiver that we're talking about. My flex every week, I have him already. Malik Neighbors is really good. I think he could end up being one of the best rookies if Marvin continues to do what he did last week. I think he'll be the best rookie receiver out of this class, but Malik Neighbors is number 2. He's right there. The Giants got a stud, but they only got a Malik Neighbors stud. They only got Malik Neighbors, in his full potential, his true potential, with a better quarterback under center. If you have Daniel Jones under center, and with the schedule you have right now on the offensive line, Malik Neighbors will have good weeks against the Commanders, the Panthers, maybe against the Saints. But when he's going up against, I don't know, the Texans, right? Like, that's just one team who has a good secondary. When he's going up against a really good defense, Malik Neighbors is not going to perform. Whereas I think Zay Flowers is still going to get those targets. And also, Neighbors is the wide receiver 1, but he is going to be competing a little bit with Wan'Dale Robinson. and Darius Slayton every now and then. Those guys are just going to be a little bit more open because teams know, okay, I'm going to double cover Malik Neighbors. He's this promising, exciting rookie. He's been compared to Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, LSU guy. Zay Flowers is more consistent. It's close again, but got to stick with Zay.
Interesting.
I can't add anything else. Adam hit all the nails I would have said.
Just as a Giants fan, I needed to just touch on that.
That's really interesting considering that Zay Flowers is ranked as the wide receiver 25 according to flockfantasy.com, and Malik Neighbors is ranked as the wide receiver 12.
And again, I think in the future when the Giants draft their franchise quarterback, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck, Shadur Sanders, XYZ, whoever it may be, maybe Arch Manning. I think Malik Neighbors will immediately go over Zay Flowers, but we're talking about the rest of the season. Zay Flowers is on a winning team, and he has a way better quarterback. Without a doubt, Zay Flowers.
Why don't we shift the tight end, actually? All right, so I want to do a who would you rather have with tight ends.
Yeah, let's do it.
So considering some of the production we've seen, who would you rather have, Trey McBride or Sam Laporta?
I got to go with Laporta here. I mean, obviously, this couple weeks have belonged to McBride. McBride seems to be more consistent, but it's tough. I'm gonna go with Laporta just because I'm sure they'll figure him out. Like last year, he finished as like the tight end, like 2 or 3, despite being a rookie. Led the league in touchdowns for tight ends, or like regardless of their draft class. Like I think now that they're 1-1, yeah. Wait, no, are they 1-1, 2-0?
Both teams are 1-1.
They're 1-1.
Okay, yeah, they're 1-1. I think they realized that after losing to the Bucks that they really should probably use Laporta more, and I think they'll use him a lot more for the rest of the season. I mean, look at how they did last year with him. Like they made it to the NFC Championship, and he was a huge reason why. So that's my main reason why I'm going to go with Laporta over McBride.
Yeah, remember I picked the Lions to go to the Super Bowl. I had them losing to the Chiefs, but if they're gonna get there and they're gonna win games and bounce back from a game like this, I agree with what Hunter said completely. So agreeing again here, Laporta is gonna help them get there. As a rookie, he was outstanding. I think actually Brock Bowers is gonna have a similar impact as a rookie tight end than Laporta had last year. Don't get me wrong, Trey McBride, I would love to have him in fantasy. I was targeting him a lot in my draft. That Kyler McBride stack is great fantasy, but I still think this was one of those fluke weeks. Puka and Kupp aren't hurt. The Rams are a little bit more competitive. Maybe it's a closer game. Their offensive line is fully healthy. The reason that Trey McBride and he didn't have an outstanding performance in this 41-10 victory. It was more Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think it's going to be, McBride has some boom weeks. He has some bust weeks, but Laporta is more consistent all around. So I got to agree with Hunter, and he's on the better team, and they're a team that's pushing for a Super Bowl. So got to go with Laporta.
Interesting. Okay. Trey McBride is ranked as the tight end 1 rest of the season, but we'll see how that changes. Let's go with a little more interesting one. Who would you rather have? George Kittle or Travis Kelce?
Good question. Kind of similar to my Flowers and Neighbors take, or no. Who was it? No, it was Flowers and Diggs, where I kind of said that one of them is not extremely, but one of them is going to be more consistent with like a lower ceiling, or with a lower ceiling, and the other is going to boom like every once in a while. They both kind of exhibit that. I think Kittle's obviously more of a blocking tight end, but when he catches, like when he has games of catching, he really balls out. Well, Kelce, I mean, the last couple of years haven't really been too friendly to him, and he's been quiet to start the season. I'm going to go with Kelce here, just because I think he's going to have more weeks of like 8 points than Kittle is. So it's tough. That's a good question, but it really comes down to Kittle's blocking it's a good problem to have that he plays the tight end position better than anybody in the league when you're doing multiple roles that a tight end is required to do. So there's my answer. I'm going to go with Travis.
Yeah, for me, it's very close again, but I'm going Travis. And the reason being is he's off to a slow start. He typically starts off pretty slow, but this is the back-to-back champs looking for a three-peat. Like Patrick Mahomes is going to find Travis Kelce down the field. They started off to, a slow start to the season. Obviously, 2 really tough matchups back-to-back. You have the Ravens, you have the Bengals, but he's trying out his new weapons right now. He's trying out Rashee Rice in year 2. He's trying out Xavier Worthy. He's trying to kind of assess who can I throw to, who can I rely on, going forward the season. When they finally get going and they're clicking, because right now I think this team is good, but I don't think they're at their full potential yet. Like I have them winning the Super Bowl again this year, going for the three-peat. Mahomes is going to want Kelsey. So I think more long term, you want Travis Kelsey. Right now, you want George Kittle, especially with Debo out and some of these injuries. But I think it has to be Kelsey. He's just better overall player. I agree with what Hunter said. Kittle's more of a blocking tight end. When he does make the catch, he produces. But Travis Kelsey is still, I mean, one of the greatest tight ends in maybe history, right? Like, eventually he's got to get going. I don't expect this to keep up. I think Patrick Mahomes will eventually target him, and it may end up being this week against the Falcons. So I got to go with Travis Kelsey here.
No, we're gonna shift it over to running back here. Who would you rather have, James Cook or Travis Etienne?
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with James Cook here. I think he's in an offense that would more benefit his style. He's kind of like he's not the main receiver on his team, but he's on a team with very little receiving like talent. He's a great pass catcher, and as a runner, he does an excellent job as well. Etienne's off to a slow start, and I don't see it getting too much better. I do see it getting better for sure because he's one of the better running backs in the league, but James Cook for me, I think this is a relatively easy choice for now.
Yeah, I don't know how to look at the Jaguars. Like, every year they start out hot and then they end up missing the playoffs, or right now they're starting out slow and maybe they'll pick up and end up missing the play. They're very inconsistent. They never really are consistently good and are a playoff team that everybody's like, watch out for them to make a Super Bowl push or be a dark horse. And I think ETN is their best weapon on offense. I really do. With Evan Ingram being injured this past week, with, Brian Thomas still being unproven, Christian Kirk being, a good flex option in fantasy, but really not a decent wide receiver 1 or 2. I mean, he's a really bad wide receiver 1 or 2. Good flex, but I'd have him on your bench too. ETN's their best running back on that offense. For that reason, I think he's going to be good. But all around, I still don't have him better than James Cook. I mean, like Hunter just said, the Buffalo offense is built for James Cook to succeed. He's been here for a while. He's one of the only players on offense, along with Josh Allen, who's consistently been here for longer. Like they've been here for multiple years. They have the experience working together. No Stephon Diggs. Shakir's only in his second year. There's new receivers around him with Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Matt Collins. But James Cook has worked with Josh Allen. And right now, if the Bills season is anything like it's been the last 2 weeks, James Cook is going to be a big part of that. And he's going to be a big reason that they make the playoffs this year. So give me James Cook.
All right, let's up the ante a little bit. Considering what's been going on with the Rams, let's stick with James Cook. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. James Cook or Kyron Williams?
So I wasn't really a big fan of Kyron going into year 2. Mainly, I mean, sophomore slump is a real thing. He wasn't a rookie last year, but it was his first year starting. And then when I heard the news that he'd also kind of be like a punt returner, I was like, oh yeah, there's no way he's gonna be that good this year. So the Rams are also in kind of a bad situation at the moment, as we've touched on earlier. Um, so there's my no for Kyron. But yes for James Cook for all the reasons I said before. He's good as a receiving back and a running back, and he's in a much better situation.
Yeah, not going to repeat my points on James Cook, but again, agreeing with Hunter here. When you look at Kyron Williams, don't get me wrong, great running back, but 100% agree with what he said. When I saw he was receiving kicks and punts, like I just wasn't confident in him. Sophomore slump, like he said, is a real thing. I do think his production will go up now with both Puka and Cup out. But remember, and we talked about this just now, their offensive line is injured. They're really banged up. So they got all backups in there. Kind of reminds me of what Saquon Barkley had to do last year. They're relying on him a lot with pretty much a backup starting 5 of offensive linemen in front of him. And even Saquon got hurt last year with the Giants. I'm not at all comparing him to what's going on in the Rams situation, but it seems a little bit like that with all these injuries, and the injury bug certainly has gotten to them. Again, I do think they're going to be running it a lot, but James Cook just fits that offense better in Buffalo than I think Kyron Williams does in LA. I think his production will go up, don't get me wrong, but that offensive line being banged up, for me, it's a no.
All right, let's talk about 2 more players at running back position. considering the high draft capital you had for one of these players, and also considering the 2 week production that another one of these players has had, who would you rather have? Jonathan Taylor or Alvin Kamara rest of season?
Um, I'm gonna go with Kamara. It's close. I guess really close. But Taylor has a quarterback that likes to run the ball a lot. This is kind of contradictory to my thoughts on Derrick Henry, unfortunately. So it kind of takes away some carries. Um, Obviously Taylor is much younger than Kamara. But I don't know if he'd be. What is he? How's he been in fantasy so far?
Jonathan Taylor, through the first 2 weeks, has had a combined of 25 fantasy points, while Alvin Kamara has had combined 66.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a. That's most of my answer right there.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Kamara here.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I not many more reasons than what Hunter just said. Again, I mean, Kamara's coming off a 44-point week. Like, do I really need to say anything else? Derek Carr, I think, is going to slow down, but I mean, Kamara's been doing this for years. When Drew Brees was his quarterback, when Jameis Winston was there, he's been consistently good. And Hunter brought something up during this last episode of, him scoring 7 touchdowns on Christmas Day. Like, to have these games. Like, he's been known to do this. And Jonathan Taylor, I'm very high on him. Don't get me wrong, but still very young. It's a young Colts team. I do have them making the playoffs, but Anthony Richardson, I agree with what he said. He loves to run it, kind of similar to Lamar. Loves to run the ball, similar to Jalen Hurts, loves to run the ball. And I think that's going to take away carries from Jonathan Taylor. And I think, both being very young, still maturing, still developing. Alvin Kamara is proven. He's been in the league for years and he knows how to win games, especially fantasy weeks for you. You could have nobody produce 1 week and Alvin Kamara could have 5 touchdowns and he still end up winning. Give me Alvin Kamara. I know it's more boom or bust, but more experience there. I do think the Colts are the better team. Don't get me wrong. However, Saints have looked pretty good. So right now, and probably the rest of the year, going Kamara.
It's really interesting to see that I compared all of the higher ranking players to some of the names that you picked, and you picked the names that are lower in the ranks compared to a lot of these other players. So we're we're looking at flockfantasy.com. I'm looking at the rankings here. JT is ahead of Alvin Kamara, but personally for me, like all of the comparisons I gave, I would have taken the underdog personally. So it's that's really interesting to see that we're pretty much all on the same page with that. That wraps it up
I'm
for me.
hoping we
Yeah.
get one that we disagree on. I feel like we've been agreeing on everything.
Everything. I think every single one we agreed.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. Why don't we go back to wide receiver here, and I'll let's stick with Zay Flowers here because he seems to be making it very high in the ranks. Who would you rather have, Zay Flowers or Brandon Aiyuk?
That's a good one.
That is a good one. Ayuk was really good for me last year, but he's gotten off to a slow start so far. And even with Devo out for a little bit, I don't know how much he's gonna improve. So I'm gonna go say Flowers.
Wow. Okay.
I
It's
I
close.
think we got our first disagreement here. I have Zay Flowers in
No, that's not
fantasy.
necessarily a disagreement. It's just
Yeah.
I'm looking at Flock Fantasy and Zay Flowers is ranked as wide receiver 25 and Ayuk is ranked as wide receiver 11.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
I'm gonna
crazy.
defend Ayuk on this one. I have Zay Flowers, don't get me wrong, I think he's consistent, and I'm not sure how many weeks Debo Samuel is gonna miss. I know we're talking about the rest of the season, but Ayuk, when healthy, when wide receiver one, especially, I mean, this is a banged up offense and they need to get the ball downfield to somebody. Like we just talked about with George Kittle, he's more of a blocking tight end. I think his production value will definitely go up. I think he's going to be targeting Ayuk a lot more. He was very quiet through these first 2 games, but um, I'm high on Ayuk. We didn't know if he'd be on the Niners going, all off season. But now that he is, he's a wide receiver one on a lot of maybe every other team, minus like the Texans or Bears or something, but maybe on the Bears. But he's a wide receiver one on, maybe 30 or 29 out of the 32 teams. So I just feel like his production, it's Debo and CMC and a lot of injuries on that offense that, for me, look at Ayuk as a guy that I value very high. And I just think overall he's better. We talked about it before. Lamar Jackson, MVP like quarterback, but not the best passer at all times. I mean, he always finds Zay Flowers. He's consistent. But, I think Brock Purdy is going to sling it to Ayuk as opposed to Zay Flowers open downfield, but Lamar opts to run it himself or hand it off to Derrick Henry. So I'm going to take Ayuk, but it is very close. That was a good one, Mark.
I'll just add in on this one. As much as I love Zay Flowers as a player, and it makes me kind of happy to see that there's a lot of players that are ranked ahead of him that you guys would take Zay over them. I am going to take Ayuk in this case just because I think kind of like with Jamar Chase, he's been playing, he's in a little bit of a slump, but I think he should pick it up. And I think he realizes now is going to be the time to step up. Well, if we see that Zay Flowers continues to just be, a solid player and consistent production, Brandon Aiyuk is not really there yet, then that might change. I guess I'll do one more. Who would you rather have? These players are ranked very close for me, and I feel like this is going to be kind of splitting hairs. But Garrett Wilson or Rashee Rice?
I'm gonna go with it is close. Garrett Wilson's obviously listed kind of has higher overall in terms of draft value and all that, but I've never been extremely high on him. Um, I still think he's a great player, but Rashee Rice is definitely the better situation. He's got the better QB. Obviously, Rodgers is still playing, but he's not necessarily gonna win his fourth MVP. If he does, I'd be stunned. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Rashee Rice. I think he's in a better situation at the moment. Simple as that. I feel that he's really starting to emerge as one of the league's not necessarily top receivers, but I could potentially see him entering that top 10 conversation by the end of the season.
Yeah, I 100% agree. A lot of people might be shocked listening to this. I think Rashee Rice is a little bit better, slightly better, at least this year, than Garrett Wilson. I wouldn't call Garrett Wilson overrated. I think he's a very good player. Maybe I'm biased as a Giants fan. I also, Hunter, have not been very high on him, maybe because he's a Jet, but I just feel like, for what you said, the situation, better coach, better quarterback, better overall offense. I mean, we're talking about a team, the Jets, who are starting to kind of be in the let's make the playoffs, Super Bowl potentially contention conversation, as compared to the Chiefs, where, I mean, they're looking, like I said, for their third Super Bowl in as many years. They're looking for a three-peat. We're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he's aging and he has, coming off an injury, an Achilles tear, compared to the second, you could argue, the second best quarterback of all time, right? Like, in his prime, throwing him the ball. Rashee Rice, just a little bit more potential there on that offense. Like I said, better coach, better quarterback at this time. And I think he's, like I said, with Laporta, he's going to help the Lions a lot in the Super Bowl push. Rashee Rice is going to help the Chiefs a lot in a Super Bowl push.
So since you take Rashee Rice over Garrett Wilson, that would push Rashee Rice just outside of the top 5. Crazy. And as for Zay Flowers, I would push him, into the top 20 as opposed to being outside of the top 20.
Yeah, I think
almost
like
in the top 10.
I
That's
think
crazy.
15 is a good spot for Zay.
Crazy. All right, that's I can't believe, I didn't think Zay Flowers would get as high as Chris Olave and Malik Neighbors or even Brandon Aiyuk, but he did. So yeah, that's all I got. I thought that was pretty fun. Wanted to do that little who would you rather have segment.